are three main layers of the skin: the epidermis, the dermis, and the hypodermis. The epidermis is the outermost layer, the dermis is the middle layer, and the hypodermis is the deepest layer. The epidermis is made up of squamous epithelial tissue, the dermis is made up of fibrous connective tissue, and the hypodermis is made of adipose connective tissue. This top layer is the epidermis, the middle layer is the dermis, and this bottom layer, full of fat cells, is the hypodermis.
We're going to look at the epidermis, which is this top layer of cells in the skin. These are the layers of the epidermis, and there are 4 different cell types within the epidermis. Keratinocytes are mitotic cells that produce fibrous protein, keratin, and die and completely fill with keratin as they reach the most superficial layer of the epidermis, the stratum corneum, and they are also found in all 5 layers of the epidermis. Cytes produce pigment melanin, and they protect keratinocytes' nucleus from UV damage. They are found in the stratum basale layer. Dendritic cells, although not pictured in this picture, act as macrophages, and they are key activators of the immune system. They are found in the stratum spinosum layer. Cortical cells, or tactile cells, act as sensory touch receptors in the basement membrane, and they are found in the stratum basale layer. Xylem, keratinization of the keratinocytes begins, as cells above this layer die and fill with keratin due to lack of blood supply. The youngest, newest, actively dividing keratinocytes are found in the stratum basale layer. These are where the cells are stem cells and actively mitotic, pushing cells to the next layer as they divide. In the stratum corneum, these cells are keratin-filled sacs that are dead and flat. Thick skin has an extra layer called the stratum luteum that gives it 5 layers in its epidermis instead of 4, to add more protection. This is just a few rows of flat, dead keratinocytes.
There are 2 layers of the dermis, the papillary layer and the reticular layer. The tissue of the papillary layer is areolar connective tissue, and its function is blood vessels stick up into the bumps in order to nourish the epidermis, and it helps with touch and pain reception, and also allows us to grip things and gives us our fingerprint. The reticular layer is made of irregular dense connective tissue, and it allows for stretch and recoil to prevent penetration to the dermis, and the cleavage lines are parallel to the skin, allowing for easier healing. The function of the dermal papillae is to give blood supply to the epidermis, allow for touch and pain receptors, enhance grip, and give fingerprints. They contribute to friction ridges because they are on top of dermal ridges that cause the epidermal ridges. The ridges are called friction ridges, which enhance grip, touch, and create a pattern forming our fingerprints. They are found on our fingers and toes.
Stretch marks are due to extreme stretching that causes dermal tears, causing the skin to tear on the inside, leading to stretch marks. Blisters are formed as a protective cushion from short-term trauma, like heat or friction, and they are fluid-filled pockets separating the epidermal and the dermal layers of the skin.
The 3 main pigments are melanin, keratin, and hemoglobin. Melanin is found in melanocytes in the stratum basale, and it is stimulated by sun exposure. Keratin is in the stratum corneum and hypodermis. Humans cannot make, they have to be ingested. Hemoglobin is made of red blood cells of the dermal layer, and bone marrow makes it, and the body needs iron and vitamin D to synthesize. All skin has roughly the same amount of melanocytes, but skin color is determined by the amount of melanin they produce and the type of melanin. All melanin helps protect the skin from UV radiation.
Cyanosis is when skin becomes a blue color due to low amounts of oxygen in the hemoglobin in blood cells. In darker skin tones, it may be harder to see if the skin is a blue color, so they will check the nail beds to see. Jaundice is when there's a yellow cast to the skin caused by liver disorder where bilirubin protein accumulates, or common in newborns.
Bruises occur under the skin, and they are a purple, yellow, reddish color that is caused by blood clotting under the skin.
Hair is located everywhere but palms, soles, lips, nipples, and portions of external genitalia. We have it to ward of insects on the skin, protect head from heat loss, physical trauma, and sunlight, and act as a filter for our eyes, nose, and ears. The 2 macroscopic parts of the hair are the shaft and the root. The shaft is above and partially into the skin, and the root is the follicle. The difference in hair texture between people is the shape of the shaft. Flat shafts have kinky hair, which curls more. Oval shafts create silky and wavy hair, and round shafts create straight to coarse hair. The 3 microscopic parts are the medulla, the cortex, and the cuticle. The cuticle is the outermost part, the cortex is the middle part, and the medulla is in the center.
A hair follicle is where the hair root sits, extending from the dermis to the epidermis areas. It is responsible for containing the hair matrix that creates new hair cells from a layer of stem cells, and containing the hair papillae that supports the hair matrix and supplies blood for hair nutrients.
The follicle is deep in the dermis layer, where the root of the hair sits. The hair follicle surrounds the root of the hair and is composed by 3 layers. The outer layer is made up of peripheral connective tissue sheath containing fibers. The middle layer is made up of the glassy membrane, and the inner layer is the epithelial root sheath, including the external and internal root sheath. The hair bulb is the living part of the hair and contains touch receptors, and the hair matrix. The hair matrix is the name for the area of stem cells that are actively dividing to create new hair cells. Papilla are composed of dermal tissue and supply blood for hair nutrients and signals the hair matrix to divide to grow more hair. The erector pili muscle is an involuntary smooth muscle attached to the hair follicle that contracts to form goosebumps.
Vellus hair is pale, fine body hair of children and adult females. Terminal hair is coarse. It's on the eyebrows and scalp, and at puberty they appear in axillary and pubic regions. And it is also found on the face and neck of males.
True or frank baldness is a type of hair loss that is sexually influenced to occur in some males due to a follicular response to dihydrogen testosterone, the molecule seen here.
Nails are for protective purposes. They cover our finger and toenails and help pick up and scratch different things.
The nail bed is the skin seen beneath the body of the nail. The matrix is at the end of the nail, closer to the joint, and is where the hard keratin nail begins to grow, even before the nail emerges from the skin.
The lunae is the thick white crescent over the nail matrix used to protect the nail matrix. The nail folds cover 3 of the 4 edges of the nail, the proximal and lateral edges, including the proximal fold known as the cuticle.
Sweat glands or sudoriferous glands, and they are located on all skin surfaces except nipples and parts of external genitalia. The 2 main types of sweat glands are eccrine and apocrine. Eccrine is for thermoregulation, and they're found in the palms, soles, and forehead. Apocrine is unknown in their function, but may act as a sexual scent gland, and they are found in axillary and anogenital areas.
We have sebaceous oil glands in large amounts on our neck, chest, and face, and small amounts on body and limbs, and none on palms or soles. Sebaceous glands are relatively inactive until they are stimulated by hormones during puberty, explaining why teenagers may have more frequent breakouts. They do not exist on palms or soles because that would be too slippery, and they secrete sebum, which softens hair and kills bacteria. Acne is an inflammation of a sebaceous gland due to bacteria. If acne does arise, it is better to not pop anything or break the surface of the skin because that would lead to potential infections of the hair follicle that the sebaceous gland secretes into.
3 functions of the integumentary are protection, cutaneous sensations, which are sensory receptors that are a part of the nervous system, and they help detect temperature, touch, and pain. For example, one time I put my hand under really hot water on accident. It hurt so much I removed my hand so it wouldn't burn. And that is due to the cutaneous sensations. And then the 3rd function is excretion.
One risk factor of getting skin cancer is overexposure to UV rays because the DNA in cells can be damaged, causing mutations in DNA of replicating skin cells leading to cancer. Another risk factor is frequently irritating the skin.
3 major types of skin cancer are basal cell carcinoma, squamous cell carcinoma, and melanoma. Basal cell carcinoma looks like a shiny dome that develops a central ulcer or indentation. They're in the basal layer, and it's cured by surgical excision. Squamous cell carcinoma are scaly and red, and they're often on the head. To treat, you have to do radiation therapy or remove them surgically. For melanoma, they look asymmetric, have irregular borders. They're black, brown, tan, red, or blue in color, and they're larger than 6 millimeters in size. They can be anywhere and can metastasize to other sides of the body. In order to treat, you have to detect it early. You can get surgical excisions and take immunotherapy.
Melanoma, a type of skin cancer, can depend on whether an individual has early detection, which can be remembered by the ABCD. A stands for asymmetry. If it is melanoma, the 2 sides will not match in shape, and the shape will be very irregular, as seen here. The B stands for border irregular. If the border of a pigmented area, as seen here, is an irregular shape, as this one is, it is more likely to be melanoma. The C stands for color. The color of melanoma spots may differ, but it is normally browns, blacks, or tans, and sometimes reds or blues. D stands for diameter. Melanoma spots are large, and if a spot is longer than 6 millimeters, it has a higher likelihood of being melanoma. If somebody follows all the letters of the ABCD rule, then they may be able to detect melanoma early, leading to a higher chance of survival.
1st-degree burn is when there's epidermal damage only, redness, swelling, and pain. A 2nd-degree burn is when there's epidermal and upper dermal damage and there are blisters present. And a 3rd-degree burn is where the epidermis, dermis, and hypodermis are all affected.
Gray-white skin, red or blackened. It's not painful or swollen because the nerve endings are
The
destroyed.
rule of 9s is used to determine how much a body may be burned to estimate how much fluid is lost after someone is burned. To evaluate burns, they see how large the percentage is based on the affected rule of 9's area. It is used by splitting the body up into 11 areas that each take up 9%, including 1% for genital.